What's going on, guys? It's Snorlaxus here, and before we get into the video here, if you can't already tell, this is being recorded from a phone, so the quality isn't going to be super high, and that might be the trend here for quite a while. I have a friend working with me right now to get OBS up and running on my computer so I can record screenplay rather than from a phone, but until that gets up and running, this is what we're going to be dealing with. So I wasn't originally going to do any sort of recording until I got that up and running, but the PBF Season 7 has started, and I didn't want to hold off too long because then I'd have to try and cram in a bunch of videos if I'm able to get up running. So for now, this is what we're going to be rocking with. This is week 1 of the PBF, and we are up against Tyler, or Phantom Base, and his New York Cosmogs, who's considered to be one of the top tier teams this season with what he drafted, which we'll get into that in just a second here. So I'll hop right over to the dock, and you can see my team is right down here. My full draft is Salamence, Mega Diancie, Scizor, Tangrowth, Porygon 2, Jolteon, Quagsire, Azelf, Umbreon, Volcanion, and Toxicroak, with my Z-Mons being Salamence and Toxicroak. And then if we scroll on over, we got New York over here, which is Tyler, with his Zygarde 50 being a Z-Mon, Clefable, Greninja, Nihilego, Bronzong, Rotom Heat, Shaman, Silvally, all types, Lucario, Drifblim, his other Z-Mon, and Mega Glalie. A lot of things you don't see too often, but they all click really well together, and he has a very scary team. So like I said, this is week 1, and we are actually the first battle to be done in the league, and that's still the point. We battled this last night, and we still haven't seen any other battles yet, so no telling how things are going to go. But he ended up bringing his Clefable, Rotom Heat, Greninja, Nihilego, Bronzong, and Zygarde 50, and I bring the Mega Diancie, Scizor, Jolteon, Tangrowth, Porygon 2, and Volcanion. Not quite what I expected from him. Expect a couple other things, including that Mega Glalie for my Salamence, which I'd actually end up not bringing. But we are going to hope that this just works out in our favor, and we'll hop right into the match here. So to start out, I lead with my Volcanion because I see that he really does not have a solid switch. His best switch would be if he's running especially defensive Clefable or Bronzong. Both will take still a relatively hefty chunk, but they can eat the hits. So he leads off as his Greninja here. I'm like, alright, I got nothing better to do than just stay in and click Steam Eruption, so that's what I do. And he hits me with a Dark Pulse, which just tells me a couple different things. One, he has to be Scarfed, because I am also a Scarfed Volcanion, and I would outspeed everything on his team, barring a Scarfmon. So this is good information to have, although it puts me in a tough spot, because I could potentially get flinched out, and I also know that I'll be taking damage before he takes damage, so a crit or any other sort of hacks could put me in a really bad spot. So after I hit this Steam Eruption here, I get the burn, which is nice. I decide to switch on out just to preserve my Volcanion for later in the game. I go into my Porygon 2 here, which is very specially defensive, and I take very minimal damage from that. Knowing he'll probably switch out here into his Bronzong or his Clefable, I just decide to fire off a Discharge, which a lot of people don't like the fact that I run Discharge my Porygon 2, and I understand that because it does have a much higher chance to para, but that's the whole reason that obviously I run it as well, is just because of the fact that it does a little less damage than Thunderbolt would, but it does give you an extra chance to slow down their team and potentially get some free moves if they do get paralyzed, which he does here, which is unfortunate for him to both get burned and paralyzed in the first couple turns. So I switch right out to my Jolteon here because I don't have actually a great answer to the Bronzong besides my Volcanion, which I want to keep in the back. But expecting rocks, I go into my Jolteon here. I'm just going to fire off some hits, just trying to weaken this thing down. But he does switch out into his Lord Envy, which is his Rotom Heat. And unfortunately, again, I get double hacks, critting him and getting the special defense drop. Which so far, that's kind of how the match has gone, is just a lot of hacks versus him, not quite as much versus me, obviously. And that'll kind of be the theme for the rest of the matches, you'll see when we play this out. So he'll switch right on out into his Clefable and take not very much damage from that, but I show that I'm not locked anyway, I Volt Switch out, and I go right back into my Volcanion, knowing that with that damage I was doing, that he can't live 2 Steam Eruptions. But he shows to be Wish Protect rather than Soft Boiled or another form of recovery, which is a big problem for me, because he can just continue Wish Protecting, and barring any sort of crits, he lives out all my hits, and he's going to waste all my Steam Eruptions. Knowing this, I keep on firing off a couple more, hoping that he'll slip up, which he doesn't, which forces me out eventually. So I go out into my Mega Diancie to try and scare him out, knowing that he can't one-shot me, and I will do a hefty chunk to him. He goes right out into his Bronzong and shows that he's pretty decently specially defensive. Got quite a bit of bulk to eat that. So I go back out my Jolteon on the incoming Earthquake. I did not expect Earthquake on the Bronzong because of the fact that since it is a Steel type, he could be running a steal move for my Diancie, and which would do a decent amount to most of my Mons. But looking back on it, with having Volcanion around as well, that might want to switch on it, running Earthquake was a much better choice for him, and I just overlooked that in my prep. So knowing that I am definitely not going to live another Rock Switch in, I have to just come on in and fire some hits. And unfortunately, I get another special defense drop forcing him out. So knowing that he has to get forced out, I just go for a Thunderbolt because I know it'll do more damage to anything on his team, barring the Zygarde, which I do have Hidden Power Ice for. But again, I get another crit on his Clefable, bringing him down low enough where another Thunderbolt can kill him, which puts him in a really tough spot because it was one of his main walls, and allowing it to go down this early, do some hacks, is really going to hurt him in the end, as he will have nothing that can take the hits from Jolteon or Volcanion after I kill him off here. So that'll be the first one to go down after 18 turns, which is pretty good, and he goes right into his Zygarde and shows the Extreme Speed, which tells me one of two things, which is either he is set up with Extreme Speed or that he is likely banded, as he wouldn't want to be scarfed with Extreme Speed unless he had no other move slot or a reason to run another move, which is potentially true. But with us, also with the Scarf Greninja, I assume that he's probably banded, is my guess, is based on my team. But we aren't going to find out right now, as he's going to switch right back out into his Bronzong, taking the knockoff, showing the Rocky Helmet, actually, which luckily I can take him out of a second one, taking out his last thing that really resisted my Mega Diancie, which is kind of my win con at this point. So he goes into Nihilego, and I bring out my Porygon 2 to eat the hit, but he shows Knockoff. Knockoff is really good tech on his part because I do have that Porygon 2, which normally could eat hits, but without the Eviolite, he can do pretty much half, or potentially even more than half to me, with a Sludge Wave or a Power Gem, depending on his investment and my investment, which I believe with my investment I had enough to live one or two Sludge Waves from full, which I'm not obviously not at full. So this puts me in a really hard spot. Again, same as his Clefable was in, where now I've lost a lot of my usefulness, but I still need it to wall certain things. So I stay in, and I go for the recover. Oh no, I go for the discharge first, and then I believe I go for the cover on the following turn. Oh nope, I'm completely wrong. Sorry. Yeah, I just go for the Tri-Attack, just wanting to get rid of this as well, just because it's one of the last things that stops my Scissor. Although I do have some tech on my Scissor that I'm not going to quite reveal just in case I need it later in the season. But I just decided to recover there, and then I'll start firing out some more Tri-Attacks, knowing that I just need to get rid of this thing and not allow my Porygon 2 to get into a range where he can come in and get a Beast Boost with Nihilego. But unfortunately, he does fire off that Overheat the last turn, and luckily for me, he does go into his Zygarde over his Nihilego. If he had gone into his Nihilego there, it would have potentially been a problem if he was Babiri Berry, because my Scissor would not be able to OHKO with Bullet Punch, and if depending on what moves he's running and if he's special attack boosting, he could sweep through the rest of my team at that point. Which, because of the fact he didn't go out into it right here, tells me only two things. Either he is Scarfed and didn't want to get stuck into one move, or he was not Babiri Berry. And either way, that's much better for me than anything else. So he gets another kill of Zygarde, and I lose one of my main walls, but it puts me in a pretty decent spot because I can go right out into Pompeii here, which doesn't have very much usefulness versus the rest of his team, especially if he is Scarf Nihilego. And this will allow me to test on if he is banded or scarfed anyway, or whether he's like Dragon Dance or Coil or something. Because if he isn't scarfed or banded or locked in any sort of fashion, he's going to go for an Extreme Speed and show that off. Otherwise, I could potentially OHKO him depending on the spread with a Hidden Power Ice, or if I didn't have Hidden Power Ice, I can hit him with a Steam Eruption and potentially burn him. So as you'll see, he will go for that Extreme Speed there, killing me, which is perfect because that allows me to go right in my Tangrowth, which is basically my main wall of this thing, and fire off the HP Ice. And because he hasn't seen any sort of special moves from me, either he was assuming that I wouldn't be HP Ice, or he knew that he'd live one and just wanted to be able to fire off a massive hit on this thing, as it would break it for his Tangrowth and Nihilego, which is probably what I'm guessing he did. So you'll see him fire off. He fires off an all-out pummeling, which I was not expecting. I was definitely expecting with my team either Groundium or Dragonium Z just to break through certain Mons, but the Fighting Z makes a lot of sense, especially if I brought something like my Umbreon or my Porygon 2, because that would do a hell of a lot of damage. But unfortunately, it doesn't kill me, and I'm able to take him out with an HP Ice. But this puts me right back in the same position as before, where he is able to then go into his Nihilego, and any of his moves will kill me, which means, again, he'll get either a speed or a special defense or a special attack boost or whatever he's running, and that could put me in a really bad spot, especially, like I said before, if he's Berry, as my scissor will not be able to kill. So knowing this, I let my Tangrowth just go down to show whatever boost he has, which he shows speed, which speed versus my entire team was a much better move, but with what I have left, I much prefer that over special attack boosting, as it will allow my Mega Dancy here to be able to come in and be guaranteed to live any hit except for a hidden power steal, which I'm not expecting him to be running at all. I was expecting HP Fire or Ice if he had it. And then at that point, I have Earth Power, and it should Oko him unless he was Shookaberry, which in that case, Scissor Okos him. So I come in here, and he fires off the Sludge Wave, which does a lot less than I was expecting, which after the match I talked with him, and it ended up he was not fully, especially offensive. He had some pretty decent bulk investment, which makes much more sense of that, because I was guaranteed, I think, to live one of my HP and special defense investment, but I was supposed to live it on only like 5%, which I live on 24, so that makes a lot more sense, which allows me to just fire off the Earth Power and kill him, which was really nice for me, because like I said before, if he was Berry or if he was Scarf in any sort of fashion, he could have really done some really big damage to the rest of my team at the end of the game there. Although with Scissor in the back, I wasn't super worried, as in his last two Mons were both pretty frail and weakened, being the Nihilego and the Greninja. With my priority moves, I guaranteed myself the win once he got down to those two. So he fires off the Dark Pulse here, which I thought was really interesting in the match. I thought maybe he's just fishing for a flinch and then hoping to flinch out my Scissor, which although I do have priority, so it wouldn't matter. But again, I talked to him after the match, and it turns out that he did not have a Water type move, which does make sense when I have Volcanion, Tangrowth, and that Quagsire too, which all can potentially either eat or not be affected by a Water type move, since he had a lot more coverage options. But unfortunately, none of them were able to hit both my Mega Diancie and my Scissor for enough damage for it to matter. So I fire off a Moonblast and end the game right there. So it was a good game to Tyler. He played extremely well. Like, even with the amount of hacks I had against him with all those special defense drops and crits, he kept me on my toes pretty much the entire match. He's a great battler. I'd say if you have a chance, go watch him his stuff or check him out. He's a great person. I'll link some of his stuff in the description below. And besides that, I hope you guys all have a good day, good night, whatever time it is for you, and hopefully I'll see you guys all soon.